Good evening, everyone. My name is Brant Frost. I'm running for re-election as your second vice chair. I've been doing this job for the last 4 years, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a few words with you tonight. Most of you know me and know my record, but for the benefit of those who don't, I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'll tell you about who I am and what I've done and what I hope to do over the next 2 years. And the theme for tonight, if this were a sermon, the title of my sermon of talk would be A Few Doing a Lot. So to begin with, who am I? I'm 33. I'll be 33 years old this June. You see, my 33rd birthday is coming up, but I say I'm 33 because as a dyed-in-the-wool 100% pro-lifer, I count the first 9 months of my existence as part of my age. And so I will be celebrating the 33rd anniversary of my birth in this coming June. And if y'all, it's right before the state convention, so if you want to give me a birthday present, please don't do it. Just send a donation to the GOP in my name and vote for me in Columbus. That's all I ask. I have been serving as a volunteer in the party ever since I was old enough to volunteer. In 2002, my sister and I, she was 10, I was 12, walked doors through neighborhoods for Saxby Chambliss and Sonny Perdue. And I remember distinctly ladies answering the door and saying, "Oh, aren't you cute?" And I learned a valuable lesson that day. If you want to get people to talk to you, take the kids with you when you go knocking doors. And I volunteered again for Sonny Perdue when he ran for re-election in 2006 and blew out Mark Taylor in that historic landslide. Such a great night that was. And we volunteered again in the campaigns of Mike Huckabee in 2010 with I was very pleased to help a fine state senator from South Georgia. Some of y'all may remember his name. Some of y'all don't. His name was Jeff Chapman. And at the time, he was the fellow standing against the Atlanta swamp. Many of y'all know that the Republican state Senate and the State House passed a big tax increase, and only a handful of Republicans stood up against it. All of them were punished. One was kicked out of leadership, 2 were kicked off their committees. One of those state senators was my state senator, Senator Seaball. Another was Senator Preston Smith, a principal conservative from Rome, up in the 14th District. 14th District just seems to create principled people. I don't know what it is. They just got some really great people up there. And the other was Senator Jeff Chapman. And I was pleased to serve, and I tell you something why I love the Republican Party. In meetings like this, Jeff was a number one draft pick among folks in the rooms like this to be our governor. Unfortunately, he didn't become our governor. But it goes to show you the discernment of the few folks in these rooms like this and the folks we influence in our circle of friends. You may not think of yourself as an influencer, but every one of us, small the way we may seem, have influence in our areas, our circle of friends. Each one of you, I guarantee you, has people call you around election season and say, "Who are we voting for?" Which is their way of saying, "Who should I vote for?" They want to know who you're voting for because they trust you. They know you care about these issues. In 2009, I became a state delegate to the Georgia Republican Party state convention and have been a delegate at every convention ever since. I was 18 years old at the time. My first public speech was at a Tea Party rally in my hometown in 2009. I was nervous as can be. When I finished my speech, I had to cut my little talk off early because my legs started shaking. I was so nervous. Fortunately, no one else noticed. But my legs no longer shake, and since I'm a Baptist, we're not allowed to shake our legs, so I might think we're dancing. You know, if I forget anything tonight, I hope you'll just attribute it to candidate temporary amnesia. You know, we have so much to say, sometimes we forget to say it. And also, you've probably heard of Baptist amnesia. Since I'm in a church, I can tell the story. Baptist amnesia, that's when Baptists don't recognize each other. Like, for example, when a Baptist is in the proximity of alcohol, he forgets some things he's known all his life. Like 2 Baptists can run into each other at a liquor store and have known each other their whole lives. They're like, "Who are you?" It's a tough crowd tonight. They usually get a louder laugh. That's all right. Pentecostal. Well, I have a couple of great jokes about Pentecostals, but I'm not going to tell them because I'm not a Pentecostal. But I can tell you that if a Pentecostal ever goes fishing with a Baptist, don't invite one Baptist to go fishing because he'll drink all your beer. Invite 2 or more because they won't drink any. In Scripture it says, "Where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there I am." Well, in the Episcopalian church, where 3 or more are gathered, there's a 4th. Excuse me, where 4 or more are gathered, there's a 5th. I don't drink, so I'm not familiar with the alcohol terminology. I apologize. In 2011, I became the vice chair of my local Republican Party. In 2013, I became the county chair as the youngest county chair in the state of a big county, and I'm still chairing that party ever since. This is my 6th term. I've been keep getting sentenced to 2 more years for good behavior. I guess they like my work, and they keep sending me back every 2 years. As vice chair, well, thank you. Your condolences are much appreciated. Over the last when I was first elected, I had a commitment that I would help with some basic stuff for county parties, because I'm not sure how much y'all are aware of this, but you wouldn't have any reason to know, but the vice chairs of the party, as a previous speaker said, mainly act as servants and aides and a resource for the parties. The chairman makes most of the executive decisions for the party, and therefore the vice chairs advise him as he wants our advice, help him as he requests it, and provide resources and assistance and the benefit of our experience to our county parties. So I focused on building websites and Facebook pages for local parties, particularly in our rural areas that didn't have them. I focused on getting technology available to speed up our convention process. And I focused on providing resources for volunteer recruitment. You know, we have thousands of Republican small dollar donors in this state who've never been to a Republican meeting. Their information is available openly. It's public information. Y'all could, in fact, I just got a text tonight from a lady in South Georgia who has a card writing party. Right now, her county party, I suggest this to her and they decided to do it. Her county party is filling out postcards to send to all the people who gave $10 or whatever they gave to Herschel Walker, to Donald Trump's PAC, and to other Republicans, inviting them to a future meeting. And then they're going to go door to door and over the next couple of weeks inviting them again, saying, basically, it's like when you go to church. You know how when you have a visitor at church, what do y'all do? Well, if you're a smart church, you go visit them in the following week to tell them, great to have you at church, we'd love to have you back. That's the kind of engagement that I was focused on, and that's what I'm focused on over the next 2 years. Key part of this, and really not 2 years, frankly, it's 6 to 9 months. And the reason is after June, we've got 6 to 9 months, and then the primaries and the general election take over, and we're focused like a laser on winning that election. So the 3 things are, number 1, we have got to have a way to cross-check and to audit our local Board of Elections voter rolls. We have got to know that we can trust that they are removing the people who need to be removed. So we're going to have software that we're going to implement. We're testing it in a couple of counties now to make sure that each county party can know exactly who is supposed to be off their rolls so that they can give that to their Republican Board of Elections member, and that person can then compare that and say, okay, looks like they didn't take off all the people they should. And then you can have that discussion. Scripture says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We have got to provide the knowledge to our county parties. Secondly, we have got to create a pipeline. We have got to hard ask. I mean, we have got to ask like a revival meeting, calling sinners down to the altar. We have got to ask every poll watcher, at least twice, who poll watched for us over the last 4 years, to please volunteer to work as an election worker. We have got to have Republicans running elections. The best way to get the honest result out of an election is to have Republicans working as election managers, as precinct managers, as election workers, and even as election superintendents. We have hundreds of Republicans, perhaps a couple thousand by now, working all across the state in elections, and that is the best way to keep elections honest. And now, so we have those 2 points. And finally, we have got to keep chipping away, or better yet, take a cleaver to the problems we still have in the elections with our election laws. We still have a Dominion voting system which most Republicans want to get rid of and don't trust. And this is the thing about elections. It is not enough to say, well, I don't think you've presented enough evidence. Many elected officials say, well, I don't think you've presented enough evidence for election fraud. When it comes to elections, that doesn't matter. If the public, and if 1/2 of the country believes that the election was fraudulent, you have lost an invaluable part of a representative government which political scientists call loser's consent. In other words, the loser has to say, yeah, it's tough, but I lost fairly. The election was honest. The votes represented what the people wanted. I may have had not enough money, I may have had bad advisors, but I wasn't cheated at the ballot box. If people think they were cheated, you have lost the key ingredient, and you are only one step away from moving ever closer. You're one step closer to moving from ballots to bullets. The beginning of every civil war in a society is when one side decides that elections were no longer a way for them to get redress for their grievances. We have got to restore confidence in elections. The Democrats haven't acknowledged they lost an election fairly since 1952. They say that Nixon stole the 68 election. They say Reagan stole the 80 election. They say that Bush stole 2000 and 2004. And they say that the Russians stole 2016 for Trump. They have not acknowledged a real fair defeat in a very long time in their hearts. Now that we see what they've done to, I'm not even going to say they won the last election, what they did to pull off their version of an Eastern European revolution in 2020. If we cannot restore voter confidence by getting an election system that people can trust, by getting verifiable paper ballots with currency-grade paper that can be properly audited and that can be available for open records requests, if we cannot get that, we are only going to see, A, more Republicans be disinterested in voting, and B, we're going to see more and more weakness of confidence in our electoral process. And I can't tell you how much frustration I hear from new delegates in particular asking, what are you doing about it? In particular, I served on the task force that wrote the report that went to the state legislature that became, most of it became Senate Bill 202, that did a lot of good things. Now, they only took half our advice, the easy half. They didn't get a better voting system. They didn't get rid of the drop boxes. So we have got to keep pushing on that. And to that end, you have to elect legislators. I raised a great deal of money in this last cycle to elect legislators who would actually implement the platform they ran on. We have got to, and don't talk about this because it's not my job to get in the news. A previous speaker said it very well. Don't give quotes to Greg Bluestein. I have no interest in speaking to people who hate us, hate our flag, hate our country, hate our God, giving them quotes for anything. Just, no thank you. No thank you. That's not what we need to do. They have no interest. Here's the thing, this is why you should never talk to lefty media. If you speak eloquently, concisely, and don't make any mistakes, they'll be like, whatever, and go on to find someone who will say just what they want to say in just the way they want to say it. If you make a mistake, you're going to hurt the team. So the best thing to do is not even talk to them at all, unless you have so much time on your hands that you just want to drag out the conversation and just waste their time. But here's the thing, you shouldn't have that much time on your hands. There's a country to save, there's votes to be had. So that's why I need your support. For the next 2 years, and really 9 months if I'm elected, I'm going to continue to do that. I said at the beginning my topic was, and I'm running over time, I apologize, I'll finish with this. I said my topic title tonight was A Few Doing a Lot. Think back to how few people it took to begin the American Revolution. How small those numbers were in those towns all across America in the beginning, those committees of correspondence. Think about how few men stood at Thermopylae against the Persians, 300 Spartans. Think about how few men there were with Henry V at Agincourt in the 1400s. This new King of England, the famous St. Crispin's Day speech, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhood cheap, whilst any speak that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day." Those are the kind of people that are in this room, and those few people are what we are going to use to build a Gideon's army to take back this country. God bless you, folks. I'll see you in Columbus.